All right, man, we back with another Retro Hoops series. I think we like on 9 now, so check out the Retro Hoops playlist, man. We talk about old basketball. We did get some good news today. I think they pushing up the Chicago Bulls documentary on ESPN till April 9th. It's 20 hours of footage on this documentary. So shout out to that. But let me tell y'all, man, it's like people be having a debate about Isiah Thomas and John Stockton, which is really no debate. Isiah Thomas was the better basketball player. Isiah Thomas is like the third best guard. I mean, you can make an argument he's the number one best guard on his path to the finals and all that, man. But we here to talk about John Stockton and the time he cooked John Stockton, and then Karl Malone later in the 91-92 season elbowed him and split his head open because he was cooking John Stockton. So hit that subscribe button, bell icon button, share the video. And what grinds my nerves when people say Steph Curry and Isiah Thomas in the same fucking sentence. It's nowhere near close. You know, people just put a premium on shooting. You know, yesterday's basketball was way tougher than today's basketball. And the reason basketball has gotten softer started with Isiah Thomas and the Pistons bullying Michael Jordan whole ass. But that, like I said, that's another conversation for another day. Okay, so let's get to the money real quick. All right, what happened was, I think it was the 91 Dream Team. Michael Jordan basically said that he wasn't joining the team if Isiah played on the team because of the way Isiah tried to freeze him out, told the people, his first All-Star game, told the teams not to pass to Jordan, which was some whole shit, and Isiah was jealous of Jordan because he took Chicago away from Isiah. And if you didn't know, yeah, maybe I do a full documentary or video on Isiah and all this stuff. Maybe it's gonna take some time, but the next episode I do on Bernard King. Y'all need to know about him if you didn't. But he got mad. He was mad because Jordan took Chicago away from him like that. I mean, people talk about LeBron being Jordan. Oh, Jordan got swept twice in the finals and all that, but Jordan made the playoffs his first 2 years. LeBron didn't. They won't tell you that, but with no help, just like LeBron. But yeah, he took Chicago away from Isiah. Isiah didn't want to go to Detroit. He wanted to get drafted to Chicago. His best friend, his fellow Chicago brother, Mark Aguirre, who later get traded for Adrian Dantley and helped the Pistons win the championship, he got drafted to the Chicago. No, he got drafted number 1, but Chicago took somebody. I don't know how it went. He got drafted number 1 in Chicago. The Pistons took him, and Chicago ended up taking somebody else because Isiah was the number 2 pick. So he tried to do all this stuff not to get drafted by the Pistons, and bad interview. And they said Jack McCloskey said we're gonna take you regardless, and it ended up being one of the better moves. Isiah only spent 1 year at Indiana at the time. I think that was unheard of. I think they won a national championship. I think he spent 1 year there. All right, so I kind of gave y'all guys the backstory. John Stockton got on the Dream Team over Isiah because, Michael Jordan didn't like Isiah and the wars they had, and Isiah was jealous, and that's natural human nature. You watch Jordan come in and take your city away from you, and when, Isiah and them would go play in Chicago, his family would be rooting for Jordan and the Bulls. But you got to remember, before Jordan, the Bulls was nothing. You know what I'm saying? And that's the God honest truth. After Jordan, the Bulls pretty much was nothing and won nothing. And, Jordan was just an extremely talented guy that was pretty much held back in college behind, playing with James Worthy and I think Sam Perkins and some other guys. So he was held back in college. You know what I'm saying? And when he got to the pros, they took the shackles off of him. And Jordan was amazing. He was a prolific scorer. He was a prolific basketball player, two-way player, can finish, had a little mid-range. And, once he kind of extended his range, more consistent, Jordan was a problem. There's nothing Isiah could have did, but him, he tried to smear Jordan's name, and, Jordan just, rose above that. You can't knock Jordan, man. You can't knock Jordan for not wanting Isiah. And basically, the rumor was he told the dude who was putting together, was it Jerry Colangelo, whatever his daddy name was, whoever it was, that he wasn't joining the team if, Isiah was on it. So they put John Stockton on the team. So in the 91-92 season, when Isiah seen John Stockton after that, and I'll put the link in the description, went to work on his ass. He embarrassed John Stockton, bro. He went out his way to embarrass John Stockton. And he dropped a 44 ball on 44 piece on John Stockton's head and he embarrassed John Stockton off the dribble, you know, from long range, from mid range, taking him to the hoop. They tried to switch other defenders on Isiah. It was nothing that John Stockton could do. He emasculated John Stockton at the Palace in Auburn Hills that night, and John Stockton didn't do nothing. To be honest, John Stockton was a selfless dude. John Stockton was one of the best point guards in the league, and I think he is better than Steve Nash. I don't care about the MVPs and shit like that to a certain extent. John Stockton, you know, he played the game the right way. You know, he tried to defend, pick and roll, you know, great assist player. This him and Malone never got nothing. I'm going to get to Karl Malone in a minute, you know, so hold on for a minute. But, man, John Stockton can play, man. If you put John Stockton in today's league, you know, he still would be efficient, and he could shoot. They just had more structure, and they played the game the proper way back then. But Isiah Thomas just, you know, them tight ass shorts, man, that John Stockton had on, man, he was just embarrassing John, you know, taking him off the dribble. And like I said, I put the video in the description on the source link. He torched him at the Palace in Auburn here. It was bad. He emasculated. It wasn't John Stockton fault. You know, he just had to be, you know, he had to be a casualty. Isiah, you know, you done motivated Isiah, and he just fooled. He just did the funky Watusi on him. They on the police. Yeah. He just did the funky Watusi on him, man. It's nothing that John really could have done, man. And just embarrassed him. And Karl Malone didn't like it. I think they came back. They went to Utah March 28th, I think it was, and Isiah went to the rack, and Karl Malone bowled him, cut his head open. And Isiah talked about it, and I put an article link in the description too, under source link as well. And he said his wife was crying, his head was swollen, it was a dirty play. And in an article, they said we've seen way more cheaper shots. It was a dirty play. Karl Malone bowled Isiah to protect John Stockton from getting embarrassed again. And, you know, most people won't tell you that. Anything that the Pistons did in the 88, 89, 90, they tried to erase that shit. 87, 88, where they easily could have made one titles. One was Isiah fought, throwing it to Bird. And then the other one was, you know, Isiah got hurt, and it was a phantom call on Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. They called on Bill Lambert. That was some bullshit jive. They could have easily walked away with 4 ships, and it's like they really couldn't ignore them, but they ignored them because the Pistons played the game they was a villain. You know, without the Pistons, there would have been no Jordan. Without Isiah, Jordan probably never would have been Jordan. Pippen never would have been as tough as Pippen, you know, became with his crybaby self. But, you know, he just embarrassed John Stockton, man. So if anybody ever tell you John Stockton better than Isiah Thomas, that's for bullshit. Isiah's career got cut short because he blew his Achilles out. Same injury that Kevin Durant dealing with. Medical was different. And when we talk about Bernard King, it's kind of a similar story, whereas 20, 30 years later, you know, had they, you know, had better treatment, his comeback would have been more stronger. But, you know, Karl Malone, you know, he bowled Isiah because he protected John Stockton from getting embarrassed in front of, you know, the Salt Lake City, Utah Jazz fans. And he was protecting this guy. But at the same time, Karl Malone is one of the worst people in basketball history. You can say what you want to say about Isiah. It was some talks that he slept with Dennis Rodman's wife. I don't know how true that was. It was some talks, you know, how he froze Jordan out and he was a snake and all of that, man. But Karl Malone, you know, Isiah could never do anything to life, even going into that Knicks situation, that sexual harassment stuff. Karl Malone is, you know, one of the most filthiest, nastiest Negroes you will ever meet. Got a girl pregnant and he was in college and she was like 13, 14, 15, and they had a kid and he paid the family off, you know, so they can be quiet. And he had 2 other daughters that he didn't really talk to till later in his career. And like, you know, some of the stuff about Karl Malone, he was just a nasty, dirty player. And that's why God never blessed him with a championship. And, you know, karma comes around and goes around like a hula hoop. You know what I'm saying? 2 Chainz, he said that on the Cypher like 10 years ago. And, you know, guess what? After, you know, what did you say? 2090, was that like 92, March 28th? So you say about 12 years later, guess what? You know, he seen the Pistons again. After blowing Isiah in the head, he had a super team. Gary Payton, Karl Malone, Shaquille O'Neal, Kobe Bryant. You know, they had a super team. And guess what happened to him? It's karma. He bowled Isiah in 92. 12 years later, he thought he was going to get a ring, and he didn't get a ring. Trap phone and ring. Pistons blew their ass out 4-1. So guess what? His career ended right then and there. Gary Payton stayed and got a ring with Miami. And you know, that was around That was around 10 years later because Jordan denied them a 96 in 6 games. They had a hell of a team too. That Hershey Hawkins, Deadlift Shrimp, Sean Kemp, Gary Payton. Had a good team, you know, in Seattle that year. Jordan was a little bit too much, and George Karl was the coach. But Karl Malone never still got a championship because he was just a terrible, hoe-ass human being, and it was rightfully so that the Pistons put their foot in their ass in 04 for what he did to Isiah in 92. Just to protect the little white boy John Stockton. If you can't be up, well, you need to put somebody else on him. And, you know, John Stockton and Karl Malone, one of the greatest duels never to win a championship. But guess what? Karl Malone, just being a shitty person, you know, and John Stockton seemed to be a good guy, you know, they didn't deserve one with Karl Malone on the team. Him missing free throws and getting stripped up and turning the ball over and couldn't shoot free throws. No, Karl Malone was a good ball player, but he wasn't a champion because of the karma and all the BS he did in his personal life. He didn't deserve a championship. And I'm just keep it like that. So when people try to tell you that, you know, John Stockton was Isiah Thomas level, put that motherfucking 1991, 1992 film on. Put both of them on. When he torched them for the 44 points, and then when they came back later in March, and Karl Malone bowled him in his head. So let me know what you guys think. I'm going to do Bernard King probably tomorrow or later in the week. You know, Bernard King was a prolific scorer. ACL injury kind of cut his career short. He came back, but he wasn't the same. But kind of give you a preview. They beat the Pistons in 84. It's after when the Pistons started to kind of build up a championship run. They was trying to build a championship, you know, team up. When you go through the phases, you make the playoffs, and then you might win the first round. You got to get past the Celtics in the Eastern Conference. So it takes years to do that. And the same thing with the 04 Pistons and Kobe and Shaq. Everybody went through that process. Even Chicago had to get over, you know, Detroit because they couldn't get over the Celtics, you know, without Detroit handling them. So I got to toot our own horn there. But in 84, the was best of 5 series. Bernard King, the Knicks beat the Pistons 3-2. In the last 4 games of the series, Bernard King averaged 40 points. I think he scored at least 40 points in the last 4 games. And when you see the footage of Bernard King play, he remind you of Carmelo. Well, Carmelo remind you of him. That's who Carmelo patented his game after. He was I think he was from New York. He went to Tennessee. He was a legionnaire. And, you know, I'm going to talk about Bernard King, and most people need to know about Bernard King. So Retro Hoop Series, Forgotten Ball Players, Bernard King, I'll be doing next. So check out the Retro Hoop Series playlist. We got stuff about how, what's the singer name? I forget her. Tony Braxton broke up Jason Kidd and Jamal Mashburn and Jimmy Jackson. I got one on Grant. I got one on Mike. I got a lot of different ones. And so we on about episode 8 or 9 here. So hit the subscribe button, bell icon button, share the video. Check out the Retro Hoop Series playlist. Appreciate the love, support, man. Check out our NBA Talk playlist. I'll be doing an NBA live stream later tonight, depending on when I drop this video. But hit the subscribe button, bell icon button. Want to make a donation, Cash App, PayPal in the description. One time for the one time. CJ Goodfellow, we gone.